Good morning, everybody. It is Merritt with Master of One Coaching, and this is our Leadership Live program. We come to you live every Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on Facebook and YouTube. And this morning, I am so happy to welcome Kelly Lyndgaard, who is an incredible inspiration to me. I got to tell you, Kelly, as soon as I learned about your organization, Unshattered, and learned about you, I was like, ooh, I have to meet Kelly.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I am delighted to have you in my personal life and involved with Unshattered. I'm so grateful for everything that you have done to support me personally, encourage the mission, and invest in our women. So thank you for sharing your platform today. It is a treat to get to meet all of your followers.
Oh, it's so my pleasure. I actually I heard from you initially through Hudson Valley Women in Business with Lori, who I had on several months ago. And I heard you speak at one of the events there, I think gosh, over a year. Well, yeah, almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It was a while ago. And I was like, oh, she's just so inspiring. And like, you're doing the work that I hope that so many of the clients that I work with and that they want to do, that they're really putting your passion and your mission into the work that you do every day, and you're living that holistic leadership life. So just super thrilled to have you here today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I'm excited to share our story with you.
And so just so that all of you know, for those of you who haven't joined us before, or just as a reminder, if you have questions for Kelly or comments along the way about Unshattered or her personal journey, or want to ask us questions about leadership, go ahead and put those in the comments. I do have my eye on the comments there. And if I see a question or a comment, then I'll bring that up on live. If not, we'll just keep rolling. And you can also ask them on the replay, and we'll come back, or I'll come back and address them later. Okay, Kelly. So the first things first, I always ask us to start out with your personal story. And it is a pretty amazing one. So tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is actually in physics and engineering, believe it or not. And so I worked for IBM in the tech world for 16 years in roles like high performance supercomputing and chip development, moved over, kind of went through the strategy and M&A side for a while, and then into software development. So when I left that world, I was director of IBM's database business, and just had a moment actually where I attended a women's event at my church. And I always like to say that I entered that room thinking that people that were struggling with addiction just needed to get their act together and be more responsible and stop sticking a needle in your arm and get a job. And that night, they had two women talk about their journey through addiction and recovery, and it blew my mind. There was a woman there who shared her story of having been 8 years old. From a broken home. Her mom was ill, and so at 8, she's taking care of herself, her mom, and her brother. And there was a 15-year-old neighbor boy who thought it would be funny to get an 8-year-old high. Fast forward 10 years, she's homeless IV drug addict that just started at that moment. And I thought, what? How can I hold somebody accountable when they started at 8 years old? They didn't know any better. There was, pain and chaos in their life. And I have just learned that the women on my team always say the drugs and alcohol weren't the problem. They were the solution to a much bigger problem. Bad solution, but it was just the way that they dealt with a lot of pain in their life that I had no idea people were experiencing. And yet, even when they go through recovery program, which there's incredible programs that we partner with all over the country, but at the end of even a 12-month residential program, that day 366 problem, most likely you don't have job skills. Often you didn't have the chance to get an education, but most importantly, you don't have a safe community to go back home to. And so that addiction relapse rate is really high, which leads to overdose, which leads to death. And that just seemed like a really bad way for us to let things go. And so if we could disrupt that with employment and training and community and purpose, turns out women can maintain sobriety for the long term. And in June, we're celebrating 5 years of providing full-time employment for women in recovery with 0 relapses on our team, which is amazing.
That is just absolutely incredible. It's just amazing. So tell me a little bit about the moment that you decided that you were going to step into the role of making a difference in this community.
Yeah, I never thought that I would leave my job. I loved my career, had great experiences in the tech world, was climbing that corporate ladder, and never dreamed that I would step away from that. But kind of had that intersection with Emily and just really understood the issues that were causing addiction. Like I said, so much pain. I have one of the women on my team right now who was a meth user, I think, for 30 years. And she told me recently that her mom and her grandma sold it. And she started using because every morning at breakfast, her grandma would put meth in her orange juice. And so when she was 10 years old, she just thought that's what you did. So she started putting meth in her orange juice at 10 a.m. So got involved with a local recovery program. I thought that I could teach these women to make handbags. I love handbags. I always joke that I go to the store to visit the new handbags every season, like some people go to the zoo to visit the animals. So I've always loved a good handbag. And my mom taught me to sew when I was growing up. And so I was like, I think I could teach a couple of these ladies to sew. The inspiration was that I had my grandfather's suede coat after he passed away. So it hung in the closet for a long, long time. Of course you can't wear it. It's too big. The seams are ripped out. But at one point I thought I'm going to cut that up, take out the good pieces of suede and make a tote bag out of that. So that was kind of all those things converging. I thought, I could teach these ladies how to sew. I think we could sell these bags, make a little bit of money to help that recovery program at the time. But what happened was you had these women making something beautiful and somebody wanted to buy it, and they were learning problem solving and creativity and just really realizing that they had purpose and opportunity to do something beautiful in the world. And you just watched that shift something in the way that they viewed themselves. And so it evolved into what we are today, where along the way, we were just learning that even if you gave them just the job skills, but you didn't solve that issue of a safe community, you still ended up with a relapse program or problem, right? So you really had to step in and solve things like housing, transportation, purpose, economic stability, job skills. All of those things had to be wrapped together so you could get them away from the places where they were originally using and help them to create new pathways. But they're an incredibly talented community of women. I always say it's the most talented population I have ever worked with. I only just try and plow the road ahead of them and give them a chance to run hard at what they already want, which is to thrive and succeed and be contributing members of community.
Yeah. I know I've heard you talk before about like and I'm not sure if this is one person or if this is a story that you hear over and over again or see, but there's a woman that came in and was like, I can't sew. I don't know how to do this. What are you talking? And then all of a sudden they're like,
yep.
And they had that moment where like, oh, wait a minute. I learned it. I did it. And all of a sudden they're making something that's not just beautiful, but like, pretty high end and so special to the people who get it, right? Especially when you're doing the custom bags. Like it's just such an emotional connection that they're building.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's all of them. I maybe one or two had ever threaded a needle before in their lives, but the majority of them have never put thread through a needle. And so learning on industrial machines and how to make these are not just handcrafty kind of bags. They're very sophisticated. We partner with Maris to make sure that we're really, world-class in terms of the hardware that we're using and the techniques that we're using and current with design. So we work hard to make sure they're really premium, beautiful, meaningful handbags, but that 100% of that purchase goes back directly to investing in our mission of ending that addiction relapse cycle.
Yeah. I think it's really powerful that you talked about, going through your corporate ladder climb and like we were super focused on that. And it's such a different environment and such a different sort of position for yourself. Right. And then that moment when you decided that you could actually totally transition your own career into this different social enterprise arena, which sounds like it was very much, on the outside, it doesn't feel related at all.
Right.
So what was that like for you to make that sort of personal decision to transition your career in this way?
Yeah. When it was time, it was so clear. I just knew. And so I just really felt called to go do this. I saw an opportunity to use my business skills and the training that I had gotten in corporate America to go solve a societal problem. And so a lot of the skills were transferable. I like to joke that there's a lot of engineering in designing handbags.
Yeah.
But in particular, it's just problem solving. Engineering is just problem solving. And so now I'm just engineering a business. Being an engineer makes me pretty good at recognizing patterns. And so even in the growth journey of the women, as we move them along through their personal professional development, I've been able to see the patterns in their lives and what's working and the language that I hear from them and how they think about the world, and to build sort of those fence posts along the way where we know that we can successfully move a woman for the point where she sits in that chair and cries because she doesn't believe that she can do this. And she sees everybody else in the room doing something amazing. And she says, this is not for me. I'm not capable. I want out. And yet we know that if she'll hang in there, we can get her to the same level of capability and success that the rest of the team has achieved.
I just had to mute my mic because my dogs are barking. So sorry about that, guys. they are celebrating Unshattered.
There you go. I love it.
Gosh, I always say something's going to happen during one of these things. It's usually my dogs or my kids. Okay, so let's see if we can get them to be quiet. Hey. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about this idea of the journey that a woman takes to, you said, engineering the problem. And it is, in some ways, it's kind of what I do as a coach is I look through, like, what are the lenses through which somebody is looking at the world and themselves, right? And then how do we help them change that lens, understanding the patterns of thinking, right? Yep. The patterns of thinking that they are engaging in, and changing that pattern of thinking. And I kind of love that you just made a connection of, like, the patterns of engineering and the patterns of the bags and the patterns of thinking. Like, that's a really cool sort of holistic way to look at it. What do you think is the kind of turning point for each woman? Is there a way to identify that? Like, is it about the accomplishment of the physical thing? Is it about the skill development, or is there things specific you can pinpoint, or is it kind of all of it together?
Yeah. Generally, the first lesson that we're teaching is about what it means to be an employee. Oftentimes, they have not held a job before, or not held a job for very long. And in a fair amount of the cases, they didn't have parents that were working and demonstrating what it means to be an employee and go back and forth to work. And so you're really teaching the discipline of employment is the first thing. And then it's like, but can you do this thing, right? And so there's always that moment of opting out, or wanting to opt out, that they don't believe that they can do this. Because we're small, that means everybody basically is operating in one room right now. And so you have people that have doing this for years who are really high-end experts sitting next to people that are making their very first stitch. And so you have to teach them, like, eyes on your own paper. I don't expect you to do what they're doing because you just started. And so focus on what's being asked of you, and don't be intimidated by what you see going around you. But we know that we can get you there. Mm-hmm. And so you sort of watch this emotional journey of not believing that they can do it, but being willing to try. And the way that we get them there is to make it very safe to fail. And so even as the leader of the organization, I try and be pretty public about the things that I fail at on a daily basis, which is a lot. But even I have to have that transparency of, like, I did this and it did not go well. I had a meeting a couple weeks ago with somebody and I blew it. I had something else going on. I was very late. That person was very unhappy with me. And later that day, I showed up and told the team, like, I screwed up this engagement today. And okay, you pick up and you move on. And so that's part of that lesson. And once you sort of get them willing to take some risk, then they see that they can do it, right? So then you have this moment of, like, okay, all right, maybe I can do this. And then the next tier is you bring somebody new in behind them and they're like, okay, I can do this. You can do it. Mm-hmm. So that confidence really just goes to another level when they start to translate it to somebody else and help somebody else believe what's possible. Like, you see this huge acceleration for people when the next new person comes in. Then they have this journey where they're looking at other people on the team and they'll say, oh, I want to do that. I want to be in that role. I want to have that responsibility, which I love. And it's great because it's the first time you see a reach for something. But when we can get to the moment where they're reaching for something, not because somebody else is doing it, but because they truly understand their own gifts and strengths and desires, and they can articulate where they can be of the most value in the world or to the organization, then, man, all you got to do is just be a cheerleader and get out of the way, because they can connect the skills and giftedness that they have been given into the way that they can function and contribute in the world, and just skyrockets from there.
I totally relate to what you're saying in terms of how I work with, people in my practice, and what you're doing essentially is putting in it's not just a training program, it's really a coaching program, from my point of view, because you're looking at the whole person.
I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah. I mean, right. And it's and in partnership with the principles of recovery, and in partnership with principles of business and employment. But it's about, you're looking at the value of the person and helping them understand themselves, have a clear view of who they are and how they can contribute in a way that is meaningful to them and also to their community. So it's super, super powerful. So, and you said something really great about leadership earlier. You said, as a leader, I have to be able to, make it safe to fail and show my failures and be really public about that and vulnerable, right?
I hate that part.
I know, it sucks. Where did you learn that? Who taught you how to do that?
I mean, I think that was part of my professional journey, is just realizing that where I'm creative. I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. I love to take nothing and turn it into something. And so I think there's probably an innate understanding that unless you fail 50 times, you're never going to get one success. And I had a professional career and environment that just understood that we have to keep trying something. And as you do, all those bad ideas get you to the good idea. It's not that you had false starts. It's that having bad ideas or things not working out or failing at things actually moves you towards your next success. And so, just one simple principle that we had used at IBM often is not talking about things as a pilot program, because sort of once you call it a pilot, by definition, it either succeeded or failed. But to talk about it as an experiment, because the definition of an experiment is to keep tweaking and improving and refining and moving closer to what you're trying to achieve. So sometimes just that little bit of shift in vernacular makes a real difference.
Yeah, that's funny. I just had a conversation this morning with a client about, rather than looking at a commitment, let's talk about it as an experiment.
Yeah, see?
Yeah. And because the brain wants to latch onto something, right? It wants to go like, oh, I have to do this thing. And for whatever reason, I mean, I can talk about the industrial complex of education and how we're sort of trained to either succeed or fail, right? A or F.
Yeah.
And especially those of us who are driven or either self-driven or driven by other outside influences to achieve, right? It's either A or F, right? Right. That's not, we don't count those. We only count A or F. So that's, I love that idea. They did experiment and like being
there's so much freedom in that word experiment.
Absolutely. Well, I'd like to pivot a little bit here and talk about the bags.
All right, perfect. I think we both grabbed some show and tell right before we started.
We did, yes. Yeah. So I'm going to tell a story about my bag, if that's okay. And then I'll let you do. Is that all right? Okay. So this is, I have been a fan of Unshattered for just about as long as I've heard of it, which is, I think, just about a year after you guys started. So this is my, I can't really see it that well because of my light. This is one of my Unshattered bags. I had one that I bought in the boutique in person a couple years ago. And then this one, so this is my wedding outfit. I got married to my husband, Tom, in 2015. Whatever that was. And
I think 2020 just like blew any concept of time out of the water. What year is it? What month is it? I don't know. So
totally. I definitely did. So, and I bought this, my mother bought me this beautiful suit, which was my first and only Halston suit. Went to Neiman's, which is not something that I normally do. Right. So it was a very special experience. And I absolutely loved this suit. And through the course of the day of my wedding, it got wedding brownie and fudge brownie smudged all over the front of it. And I tried to save it through dry cleaning. It was not to be saved. So last year I thought, what would be really cool is if I were to ask Unshattered to make a bag out of the I still have the bottom part of the suit, but the blazer, the coat.
Yeah.
And so I got on the phone or the Zoom call with Lois, and this was during the pandemic. This all happened. And Lois walked me through the potential design opportunities and what it might look like. And do we have enough fabric and all of that? And I said, because I got kind of hung up on it being a Halston suit, could we incorporate that somehow? And then she showed me the different lining. So I'll just show you. She did this very sweet thing where she put the tag on the end. She's like, it's not a Halston bag, so we can't put it on the outside.
Right.
But because of memento there. And then this beautiful, beautiful lining. It's got pockets inside. And then the Unshattered label on the outside. And then I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about the secrets of the bags.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love that you have such a special memory from that suit. We always like to say that we can turn your memories into something beautiful because that wasn't doing you any good hanging in a closet. We had someone not too long ago who said she hung her wedding dress on the back of her bedroom door because it was so special and it hung there for 11 years. And she had a handbag made out of it and then gifts, I think, for family members. Yeah. So the secrets of the bag, all of the bags have 3 secrets. One of which is that we name it every bag in honor of somebody that we know of that's still struggling with addiction. So we collect names from organizations or from customers that know somebody that's still on the street struggling with addiction. We pray for those names as we receive them. They're assigned at the point at which we cut a kit from the fabric. And so all the way through our production line, everybody that touches that bag is praying for or thinking of that person as the bag is made. And then when our customers receive it, we let them know that they're carrying that in honor of somebody that we hope finds healing like the women on our team have.
And it comes with a card that says the name of it.
Yeah. Every bag on the inside, you can't get to this part, but there's a secret message inside the liner. If you want to see one, we just posted one on our Instagram just a few days ago. We're at Unshattered NY. So you can see Lois actually writing a secret message inside one of the bags. And so it's maybe her number of days of sobriety, a song lyric, a verse, something meaningful to the artist inside each and every bag. And then we also incorporate a metallic gold thread in our bags. And that is a nod to the Japanese art form of kintsugi. When a piece of pottery was broken, historically, they would use gold in the cracks to put it back together. It was so beautiful that it became a form of art. And that term means more beautiful for having been broken. So as a philosophy of our brand, we really celebrate the fact that we've all had brokenness and issues and hurts. And that's not shameful. It's the places where we believe God has put us back together and healed us and made us beautiful, that we are able to serve other people because of those places where we were wounded, not in spite of them.
Oh, gets goosebumps every time. So, yeah, so the gold thread is a little bit different in every bag, if I understand it, and mine is on the inside, and I also have this beautiful gold chain as well. Which we work through. So lovely. Okay, did you have another bag?
I did. I brought a couple show and tell. So we do use customer items, of course, for the custom bags, but most of our bags are made from very high-end premium materials. We actually have a couple negotiations going on right now with a brand that I can't name, but a super high-end brand that you would know in the handbag space, because a lot of these companies buy leather samples or buy fabrics that they're designing from, and then that just goes in the trash. And so 100% of the materials that we're using, we're headed to the landfill. Best we can tell, we're saving about 3,000 pounds of fabric a year out of the Hudson Valley waste system.
Amazing.
We also use sometimes Broadway sets, retired military uniforms. Floor 13 Fabrics here in the Hudson Valley has donated some gorgeous fabrics for high-end hotel, scraps from projects that they've done. Ultra Fabrics out of Tarrytown, New York, that supplies to the hospitality industry and the marine industry, gives us really good industrial quality vinyl. So I'll show you. This is the one I am carrying right now, is actually out of that industrial grade, up a little bit, vinyl. So this lovely crossbody bag, it's got a pocket on the back for your purse. What we love about these, we did a whole wipe clean collection in 2020. In that collection, the bags are that vinyl on the inside and out. So you can take a hand sanitizer to it. You can take a Clorox wipe to it. If you think about the fact that you set your bag in your grocery cart, or you check out at the register and put your code in, and then you grab your bag and your keys and all the things that you're touching, and then you touch your purse, and how often do we clean our bags? So that was a really great introduction this year. This one we call the errand bag because it's just small, crossbody, throw everything in there. It's great. But we do have other styles in that same vinyl. This, we don't have a ton left. This is just an oversized zip pouch, but this bag is made from the original 1955 Mercedes-Benz interior. So we have, toiletry kits for men or women. We have a really gorgeous convertible handbag that can be over your shoulder or crossbody. We have a makeup kit out of this, and then I think 2 sizes of these really beautiful zip pouches. So that's a cool one just because of that. History is really amazing. And then this is a good example of a retired U.S. military uniform. So we have a partnership with West Point. So they donate uniforms. We have a lot of the West Point uniforms, a lot of the retired battle uniforms. So don't forget, we have really great gifts for men. Father's Day is coming up. So we have laptop bags made out of retired U.S. Army battle uniform. What's more manly than that? Keychains for the 3 kids. So those are really special ones. And then just a lot of beautiful upholstery fabrics. So not only can you find our collection online at unshattered.org, we have a boutique here in Hopewell Junction. So you can come and shop in person. And what I love about that is because we're an integrated retail environment, you get to interact with the raw materials that we're making the bag out of, see all those gorgeous fabrics. You get to look in the eyes of the artist whose lives that you are changing. So you really know that you're making a difference. You can see it. You can meet the woman that made your bag, have your photograph taken with her if you want. You can see our manufacturing process. And I was just reading an article yesterday about ethical manufacturing. And one of the first definitions of, if you're looking to have a product made, how do you figure out if your factory or whatever that you're partnering with would be ethical? Do they let you in the door? And so that's the first clip level to figure out, are they doing things in the right way? And if they let you in the door, will they let you talk to the people working for them? Our doors are wide open. And that's part of what makes us so special, is you get to come in and truly see the impact that you're making and get to know the women behind the bag. So we love that. You can do made to order. So if you see a style that you like, but not the color that you love, you can work with Lois or one of our designers to pick colors, customize your bag, add a pocket, whatever. Or you can set up a custom consultation. We do those virtually, so you can just do it online. You mail us your materials. You'll meet with Amanda generally and design your bag virtually with her. We'll make it, or you can schedule a time to come into the boutique to do that. And one of the things that we find really special about that, especially as families do it as a group, often we'll have, a group of cousins or sisters or whatever come in with family heirlooms. And something really fascinating happens in those moments because stories come out. We had 2 sisters not too long ago come in, and their father was in the Navy and had passed away in a boating accident when they were, I think, like 5 and 7. And so they had one of his Navy uniforms and they brought it in. And they, I think, were maybe late 50s at this point in their life. They come in to do custom bags out of his uniform. And the whole time, they're telling stories, and the other one will be like, I didn't know that about Dad. I never heard that story. I never realized whatever. And so there's something so interesting about that tactile experience of transforming, again, something special that's been hanging around for decades into something beautiful, purposeful, and meaningful that you can truly use. So the experience itself is really special. So we're thinking wedding season is coming up, graduation, Father's Day, of course, Christmas. We get a huge rush of custom orders at Christmas time. So pulling that back early in the year and making sure you have time to get in our pipeline is always really smart as well. But it's a special way to do something meaningful.
Awesome. Well, and so we're about to wrap up here a little bit. I wanted to ask you 2 questions. One was, if you had sort of a golden nugget of wisdom to share with our viewers, what would that be? Sort of
I think it's
a little morsel.
I think it's just believing in people and their potential and doing what you can to clear the decks for them and give them a chance to succeed. Like I said at the beginning, before I heard Emily share her story, my attitude was like, yo, just get your life together, knock it off. Why are you making these terrible choices? Do better. And there's a book called The Art of Possibility by Benjamin Zander, who is the conductor of the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra, I believe. And one of the chapters in that book is to give people the A. Let them start with an A, right? Don't give them a D and let them work their way up. Start people at the A. So even you cross paths with someone in the grocery store or the parking lot that's not behaving like you might want them to, give them an A, right? And let's just assume the best of one another, that you don't know what's happening in their day. They're having a tough time. And sometimes we can be the person through a very simple action that can turn it around for somebody else. But we have to be big enough to start by giving them the A and giving them the opportunity to make better choices.
Yeah. And know ourselves enough to know that, like, if we're giving ourselves the benefit of the doubt, we got to give it to them too, right?
Right. Yep.
Sure, yeah. And then the last thing I just wanted to talk about before we wrap up here today is that you mentioned opportunities for contributing to a woman's success. So
So
go ahead and talk about that if you would.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And so in terms of ROI, we're very inefficient. And the reason is because we are invested in helping these women get back on their feet economically and maintain their sobriety. So we give every woman 10% of her paid working hours for personal professional development. So they not only get the opportunity for paid for therapeutic counseling, they get a paid work hour to go and get that. They have mentors on the clock. We do a workshop every week. You've spoken at one of those where they're paid for that time where they're learning. We have one right now getting her education. She gets a couple hours of paid work time every week for classes and schoolwork. And so that takes investment. And so we depend on donations just as much as we do product sales. You can do that at unshattered.org/donate. Of course, we would love to have your participation in that. And like I said in the beginning, we have been doing full-time employment for women in recovery now. In June will be 5 years. We've not had a single relapse. Our team has spoken at the White House 4 times and been awarded alongside Facebook, Google, Amazon, Walgreens, Red Cross for our creative and effective work in addressing the opioid crisis. We've been named Nonprofit of the Year here in the Hudson Valley. We've seen our women start college, get their kids back, get their own. We've been able to get every single one of them in about 12 months, I think, is the max end of getting them out of transitional living into their own home or apartment. So we're really getting them on pathways that matter and make a difference. They're becoming great contributors back to our community. Amanda has spoken at one of the senators' events a few times and at the Business Council of New York State. So just being able to be a part of that journey for these women is so, so special. And I don't think there's very many brands where you get that direct level of connection. Through the pandemic, we actually were able to hire 4 new women in 2020, which is unbelievable. Last March, I thought we might be done for, but our community was so supportive that we were able to add 4 new women to our payroll in 2020. We are ready to hire 2 more coming in starting in June. They start with a 10-week training program, and it costs us about $4,500 a piece to get a woman through that 10-week training on-ramp. But like I said, we have a track record that we know that if we can give her this opportunity, she can truly thrive. And not only is it going to turn her life around, it's going to turn her kids' life around, and she is going to become a contributing, meaningful, delightful member of this community. And I don't think there's a better opportunity to invest in than helping a woman thrive.
And become a cycle breaker too, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So the generational impact that she will have, for, like you say, her kids and generations to come is like, it's an incredibly powerful journey that she is electing to go on. Right. And imagine, because I think so many people will relate to what your story, like, well, why can't they just get it together? Why are they making those choices? And it's like, because once you understand the context that somebody is living in, and their point of view, their lens through which they're viewing themselves and their lives, to help them to, that's a generational lens, right? There's something that was presented to them in various ways, whether it's community or parenting or whatever it is. And that's not to blame anybody. It's just that's how these things work. So the courage and the strength and the stick-to-itiveness and the, that little bit of faith that they have to just kind of plunge themselves into to believe enough, maybe not all the way, but enough that they can actually make a difference in their own lives. The impact that has on generations and their community around them is just super, super powerful. And so thank you for the work that you're doing, Kelly, to help them along their way, more than help, to really facilitate their growth and that impact, and for providing these beautiful handbags along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm not doing it alone. We call our supporters ambassadors of possibility. And that's exactly what you are, Merritt. That is exactly what our customers, our donors, our shoppers, you guys are ambassadors of possibility who make this happen. You're just investing in the opportunity for the women to make the right choice. And that's exactly what they want to do. So thank you for being an ambassador of possibility on the behalf of our team. We're grateful.
Well, it's entirely my privilege. And I would highly recommend, if anybody can make a personal connection to one of the women that work there, or the team. I mean, it's a very humbling relationship to be in, because I realize like just how much strength is in that team, and it's really mind-blowing. So
we try and do a lot of highlights of the stories on our social media. So I would love for your community to follow us at Unshattered NY on Instagram and Facebook. We really love that, and LinkedIn as well.
Yes, please. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kelly, for being here today. Really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your story and the stories of the women that you work with. And please go ahead, everybody, and follow them on social media and order a bag or a custom bag, turn something that you are hanging on the back of your door into something beautiful that you can use and or gift to somebody else. Any final thoughts you want to share?
No, I'm just so grateful. We're not doing this alone. We are all interwoven together, like we said, talking about that brokenness, right? We all have that. And so I know that when women come together, we heal that in one another, we encourage one another, and we make a difference. It's not that one of us is on either side of that problem. It's that we become one together to help each other succeed. So thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody for being with us today. You can check out more at Unshattered NY on Instagram and also on Facebook. And you can also find Kelly on LinkedIn. And thank you again for being here, Kelly. If you can hang on just a minute, I'm going to wrap it up. And then, okay, great. So thanks everybody again for being here on Leadership Live Friday. I love highlighting these powerful leaders that are doing all kinds of amazing work in industries, across all industries. So if you have somebody who you think might be a great guest, we would love to entertain that idea, have a conversation with them. Or if you think you have something to share, I would also love to hear from you about your journey in leadership, your passions, your personal mission to make the world a better place. Come on up and have a conversation with me and let's chat. We also have archives of these conversations on YouTube, so you can go check those out. And also on masterofonecoaching.com, you can find the blog posts that feature some of these amazing guests there too. And you can find your free leadership download by signing up for our mailing list. So we'd love to see you there. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend, you guys, and I'll see you next week.